Hello, this is Domenico with Easynomics, and we're going to look at monopoly. We're going to use Google as our real world example, and we'll highlight how monopolies are allocatively and productively inefficient. And another disadvantage of monopoly is that they can abuse their market power against society. Here in this example, we have the European Commission in 2017 applying a $2.42 billion fine against Google for abusing their dominance as a search engine by giving illegal advantage to its own comparison shopping service. And that comparison shopping service is Google Shopping, where Google will manipulate their algorithms so that products advertised through this platform are given prominent priority or lifting in the Google search as opposed to other competing platforms that are offering an ability to buy these products. And what's interesting about this commission report, and I'll put a link to this in the video notes below, is it highlights that in terms of the search engine market, clearly Google is the dominant firm with over 90% market share. Here, this red line is highlighting that over time, from 2009 to 2017, Google is maintaining their dominance of having over 90% of the market share. And below that are the competing firms, very, very low, making up that reduced 10% of the competition, being Bing, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, and other search engine platforms. So we're going to graph and analyze this. But we're also going to highlight how a monopoly can take their supernormal profit and invest in research and development, which can be a positive production externality. So to balance your evaluation, you can highlight on the downside, you have the productive inefficiencies, the allocative inefficiencies, and how they can abuse their market power and price higher and reduce quality towards society. However, on the other side, they can take their supernormal profit and invest in research and development, which can spill over positively to society. So that is a positive production externality. An example of that is Google Maps. Google taking their supernormal profit and investing in developing Google Maps, which has improved our consumers' ability to find a place that they're shopping for or to get from point A to point B in the most efficient way, and so on. So there's all these spillover benefits that's come from Google Maps from the reinvestment of their supernormal profit. So thus positive production. Another example of Google reinvesting their supernormal profit into research and development, which spills over positively to society, is their development of self-driving technology, having vehicles, cars, which are potentially being used for trucks and so forth, that are self-driving, don't need a pilot, a manned pilot to drive that car. It started off as Google Self-Driving Car Project. It is now Waymo, and Waymo has partnered with Mercedes-Benz and Jaguar and Volvo. So that technology is spilling over into those car manufacturers and in perhaps improving car safety, and also perhaps improving efficiencies when we drive our vehicles or having self-driving vehicles, which can maybe potentially free up time in the car that you can be doing other things. In addition to that, Google has used their supernormal profit to develop Google Glass, which perhaps was a little bit ahead of its time. It kind of ultimately failed as a product. A current version of that is the Apple Vision Pro, where you can go about your day while also being able to navigate through Google's internet platform and searches and so forth. So that's another spillover positive production externality resulting from the reinvestment of supernormal profit into um, new technologies that can create innovations and spill over positively to society. So those are the applied real world examples we're going to use. And so here we're going to just practice drawing again a monopoly and then also connecting that to positive production. On a paper one, you can volunteer and put in additional models to demonstrate your knowledge. So perhaps you're illustrating a monopoly and you're evaluating it. And in that evaluation, you can highlight how the supernova profit can be reinvested into that positive production. So let's go ahead and first draw a monopoly model. Here we have graph A It's the market for search engine technology. We're looking at a particular firm, that being Google, and Google being the monopoly, having 90+% of the market share in the European Union. On the y-axis, we're measuring price, costs, and revenue, and on the x-axis, we're measuring quantity. In graph B, we're looking at Google and the investment of their supernova profit into research and development to develop new technologies like Google Maps, Google Glass, Waymo, and all that being an example of positive production. So, graph A. First, I would recommend that you draw the supply curve first. Here we have this backward J shape due to the law of diminishing marginal returns. We're going to label that S1 equal to the marginal costs of production. Then we're going to choose a point, mark that point on the supply curve, and then draw our average total cost curve. The ATC goes down, and then it is equal to the supply curve, and then from that point on, it immediately starts to rise. So that is our average total cost curve. We'll label that ATC1. Then we'll work on our revenue curves. Since it's a monopoly, the elasticity of the demand curve will be inelastic. Google doesn't face too much competition. We're going to mark another point about here, and that will help guide our two revenue curves. Here we'll have our demand curve, and I'm going to have my demand curve above the intersection between supply and ATC. I'm going to label that demand in a second. That will be our demand curve, which is equal to our marginal benefit curve, which is also equal to average revenue. Then we'll also have our downward sloping marginal revenue curve. I'm going to have it go below the x-axis because where MR equals 0, that's where revenue is maximized at this point. So this is an alternative to profit maximization. So we've drawn that. So again, I would recommend first draw supply, ATC, and then draw your downward sloping revenue curves with the average revenue above the intersection between supply and ATC and the marginal revenue below that intersection. Then we're going to remind ourselves of what is the objective of the firm. So we're going to assume that the objective of the firm is to maximize profit. And the symbol for profit in economics is pi. So we're seeking to maximize profit. And that's going to occur where the marginal revenue curve equals the marginal cost curve. And there'll be a link in the video notes below with a further detailed explanation as to why MR equals MC provides profit maximization. So we're going to look for where MR equals MC. Here's our MR curve. Here's our supply curve. They intersect at this point. So I'll mark that point, and then that will set the output by the firm. Okay, so here we have quantity. I could say Q1. I'll call it quantity at pi max or profit maximization. And the firm is going to produce along their supply curve. Their quantity supply is increasing along that upward supply curve until the MR equals MC, and then they will stop at Q max. Then they will price according to demand. Okay, so here we have the demand curve going up. And this is what people are willing and able to pay, which is perhaps not necessarily true with Google. Most people might be using it for free, but let's just assume there's a particular price of maybe the time you're using to use it and the opportunity cost of that time, let's just say. So here we have our price, and I can also make that equal to my average revenue, just to remind myself that price equals average revenue. And then what's the cost per unit? I look at my ATC curve, and I mark that. That's the cost per unit. So here we have cost equal to average total costs. And I can shade in that area to highlight the supernormal profit. So this rectangular area is the supernormal profit being generated by the firm. Okay, and I can label that pi for that supernormal profit. Here we can see Again, I can make a note, and I'll use another color. I highlight that at Q profit max, AR is greater than ATC, so the firm is generating abnormal or supernormal profit. Okay, so here we just reviewed how to draw this. In addition, we should also be able to see and identify a few other things. So at Q1, or at quantity profit max, some additional notes, we can see that marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost. Here is marginal benefit. And here's my supply curve, so here's my marginal cost. So there's an underallocation of resources to the production of this good versus what is desired by society. That creates a welfare loss or a deadweight loss, which is this triangular area here. All right. So it is allocatively inefficient. That is a disadvantage of monopoly. In addition, you can also state that at quantity profit max, the firm is productively inefficient because ATC at that quantity is greater than minimum ATC. So there's some disadvantages: productively inefficient, allocatively inefficient. Also, the firm might be pricing high against what societies want. So that profit that's being generated by firms, right? The benefit of that is that it can be invested in creating a positive production externality through research and development. That supernormal profit is being invested in this case, the development of Google Maps, Google Glass, Waymo. So let's go and draw a positive production externality and evaluate, or just briefly go over that as well. So here we'll draw another supply curve. Supply equals marginal costs. Then I should be more specific. This is externality. Supply equals marginal, let me use another color. Marginal private cost. And then we'll have our downward sloping demand curve. Demand equals marginal private benefit. So I would recommend with externality models that you draw this first. The marginal private cost intersecting with the marginal private benefit, and that creates the free market equilibrium. So we'll draw that. Price M for free market, quantity M for free market. This is positive production. Production is the supply curve. Positive is we want more of that. So I'm going to draw my second supply curve outward. This will be S2 equal to the marginal social cost. And then I'll add that on the demand side, marginal private benefit equals marginal social benefit. Okay. Then I'll draw the intersection of those 2 points, or actually the quantity and price. So here we have price optimum to society, P opt, and we have Q opt. Okay. Now we should also be able to identify the welfare loss. So in this model with positive production, we can state that at QM, the marginal social benefit is greater than the marginal social cost. There's an underallocation of resources to the production and consumption of this particular good versus what is desired by society. So here we have at QM, we have the marginal social benefit is touching our demand curve. It's greater than, here we have marginal social cost, and then I can highlight that area. And there we see the welfare loss there. Okay. So Google, through their reinvestment of their supernormal profit towards research and development, it creates this positive production externality. and they're producing innovations that can spill over positively to society, so that at QM, the marginal social benefit of these technologies, in this case Google Maps, is greater than the social cost. It's improving our efficiency to be able to travel from point A to point B, to find for shops, restaurants, and whatever we might be looking for online. It enhances the ability of small retailers to be seen and identified by consumers on the Google platform through Google Maps and so forth. So there are all these benefits that it's generated. So we can argue again that research and development is a positive production externality. So from this point, I'm just going to go ahead and analyze graph A and then connect it to graph B and analyze graph B, highlight some evaluative points, and then we'll be done for today. So, and this would how I would explain on a paper 1 type of exam or a paper 2. Graph A, we have the market for search engine technology. We're looking at one particular firm, that being Google, as a monopoly, that they have about over 90% share within the European Union of search engine technology. On the y-axis, we're measuring price, cost, revenue. The x-axis is measuring quantity. We have an upward sloping supply curve according to law of supply, equal to the marginal cost of production. And it intersects the average total cost curve at its lowest point, which would signal productive efficiency. We also have two downward sloping revenue curves labeled D1 equals marginal benefit equals to average revenue. Another revenue curve labeled marginal revenue that intersects the x-axis where revenue is maximized. In addition, we can state that average revenue is greater than marginal revenue because we're going to assume that the firm does not price discriminate. And for further elaboration on that idea of how from not price discriminating and why that causes AR to be greater than MR, I'll provide another link to a video that explains that in more detail. We're going to assume that the objective of the firm is to maximize profit, so they'll produce where MR equals MC. That sets output at quantity profit max, and at that quantity, the firm will price according to demand, setting a price of P1 equal to average revenue, and the cost on average is labeled C1, or average total cost at that point. We can see that at quantity profit max, average revenue is greater than average total cost, so the firm is generating supernormal profit. In terms of some evaluation, we can highlight that at quantity profit max, the monopolist is allocatively inefficient because marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost. They're underallocating resources versus the quantity that is desired by society. In addition, because the monopolist doesn't face too much competition, there's a degree of inefficiency. So at quantity profit max, average total cost is greater than minimum ATC. Again, we should highlight that the demand curve is inelastic due to the firm not facing too much competition. Although the monopolist is allocatively and productively inefficient, we can argue that they can use their supernormal profit and invest in research and development. And in this case, there's an incentive for Google to invest their supernormal profit towards innovations on new technologies so that they can maintain high barriers to entry against their competing firms. So they decide to invest in the development of Google Maps or Google Glass or Waymo and self-driving car technology. That research and development can spill over positively to society and is thus considered a positive production externality. To illustrate a positive production externality, we have in graph B, price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis, a downward sloping demand curve equal to the marginal private benefit equal to the marginal social benefit, two upward sloping supply curves, S1 equal to the marginal private costs to the private firm employing private resources, and we also have S2 equal to the marginal social costs, where marginal private cost equals marginal private benefit. At point A, it establishes a free market equilibrium with a price at PM and a quantity at QM. We can highlight that at QM, marginal social benefit is greater than marginal social cost. Thus, there's an underallocation of resources versus what is desired by society. That the benefits of these technologies that are being privately developed by Google are spillovering positively to the rest of society. Thus, MSB is greater than MSC. That creates a welfare loss, which is the triangular shaded area. Social optimum, would be achieved where marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit at point C. At point C, we have a price optimum and a quantity optimum. Okay, so that's it. So here we want to be mindful that although monopolies are productively and allocatively inefficient, that they might price higher and reduce quality because they don't face too much competition, a benefit to society is the ability of these firms to invest their supernormal profit on positive production externalities through research and development. There'll be another video linked as well, looking at how monopolies can use their supernormal profit and invest in economies of scale, and how economies of scale are also a positive spillover benefit towards society. If you have any questions, feel free to comment those questions below, and don't forget to subscribe and to like. Thank you so much.